Bună ziua, bine ați venit. Well, as I said in the last video, thank you to Cristi Strate for suggesting this topic, which is a comparison between life in Romania, living in Romania, and living in France. Because I used to live in France. I worked for a while in Paris, lecturing, and had a house in Normandy for several years when I came back to England. So I have lived in France and know about the French system. First, there are more similarities than differences, to be honest. Romania seems to have taken a lot of influence from the French system. The first are languages at schools. Until the late 60s, French and Russian would have been taught in Romanian schools. Russian was dropped when Ceausescu broke with the USSR in the late 60s, and it wasn't taught after that. But if you talk to some older Romanians, they're going to speak some French. Everyone will speak some French. My father-in-law, Socrul, speaks a bit of French. Domne Grila speaks some French. And people of that generation from 70 upwards will speak some French. So it was certainly taught in schools. And the educational system has certainly seen an influence from France. The marking system in France everything is marked out of 20. Well, in Romania it's out of 10, which I think is, to be honest, I don't want to criticize Romania, but it's a bit ridiculous. I was asked to judge a poetry competition, a French poetry competition in Craiova at Omnia Library, and I was marking people, and I was giving them marks like 3, 4, 5 out of 10, and my Romanian colleagues were giving them marks 7.25, 8.25, 8.75, at nothing below 7. And I felt really mean after that. I mean, I got the winner, because he did a very good rendition of a poem by Baudelaire. But it's very hard when you're just marking out of 10. So they really pare it down to the individual quartiles. And in France, similarly, if you're getting over 16 out of 20, you're doing very well. Mention très bien. But here it's out of 10. So you just got to cope with that system. We're a bit harsher, I think, in England. So there we are. Schools. Well, in French, they're lycée. In Romania, liceul, lycée. In the Epoca de Aur, there was a priority, I think, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments below, but I think there was a priority on maths, physics, because Ceausescu wanted to build an industrial economy. So you'd have maths and physics, then you'd probably have electrotechnica, then you'd have mechanica, in that order. They have a bac. The baccalaureate is, of course, the bac in France. It's the same here, with a huge number of subjects. I mean, too many, really, to be honest, for any pupil to be able to cope with at that level. There is still a priority on maths and physics. They are highly valued, as they were in France when I used to work in France. And the option C was they were the best. They were the brightest pupils were put into maths and physics option. So it's the same here. I mean, if you're good at maths and physics, you are sorted. Hence, if you're a maths teacher, you can earn a lot of money doing meditatie, private lessons in maths. You're going to earn a lot, and hopefully your pupils will learn a lot. Nowadays, English is also highly prized. So if you're an English teacher, you can earn a lot of money doing your private lessons in English. But there we are. Bucharest was known as Petit Paris, Little Paris. It has an Arc de Triomphe, as does Chișinău, but it's even smaller there. The Parcul Romanescu was designed by a Frenchman, and our Palais des Beaux-Arts here, Fine Arts Palace, the Museum of Fine Arts, is the Palatul Jean-Mihai. Jean-Mihai. Well, Jean-Mihai is a French version of the guy's real name, but it is built in the French style, so it could be like a French chateau. I talked about the importance of bread in my previous video. Here you can get a baguette, which will be the equivalent of a French baguette. Croissants are big in Romania. They have different types of bread. They have bread with potato, and bread with seeds. Bread plays an important part in Romanian life, as it does in French life, so that's why I mention it. Romania is a great producer of wine. I mean, Moldova, the Republic of Moldova, is renowned for its wine and the quality of its wine. But Romania also has very good quality wine. I tend to drink wine from Vrancea, from Dragoshan. Tends to be maybe Merlot. And these are wine varieties that have been known for a long time in France. I mean, the Cabernet Sauvignon is a well-known grape variety here, and is enjoyed and drunk. Romania does not export a huge amount of wine because it's mainly for domestic consumption. But wine plays a huge role in the life of Romania. The justice system is for me very interesting. I have a family member who is involved in the justice system. Romania follows the French system in the sense that it's inquisitorial rather than adversarial, as in the UK. There are 4 layers of courts: judecatorii, tribunale, curți de apel, and Înalta Curte de Casație și Justiție. So, your first court, judecatoria, almost like a magistrate's court, then tribunale, courts de apel. There will probably be one of these per județul, and the court of casație, the high court, is in Bucharest. Inquisitorial. In French, we have the juge d'instruction, who will investigate a case and decide whether it should be taken to court. In Romania, this person is called a procuror. There are no juries. This is very interesting for me, because in England, in the UK, the system of trial by jury is sacrosanct, as it is in France. So that's a big difference. There are no juries here. The judge decides. Appeals are allowed, and you keep going up the layers of the court. So very interesting degree of similarity and difference between France and Romania in the system of justice. I lived in Normandy for a while, and their home distilleries were normal to make Calvados. My friend lived in the southwest of France, and their home distilleries for cognac and Armagnac. Armagnac was cognac distilled twice. A little bit like here, we have Csuica and then Palinka, which is Csuica distilled twice. Home distilleries are in the UK totally illegal. You can't distill your own whiskey. Say you're in Scotland, it's because you're not paying tax, and the government wants you to pay tax on any alcohol that you might produce, so that's not happening. But here it seems it's a lot freer. Everyone seems to produce their own Csuica from a variety of fruits, and I can't name the number of fruits, or Palinka if you distill it twice. Similarly, in Normandy, all my neighbours who were farmers used to distill Calvados and then bottle it, and there was no tax paid on that. I've got 2 points about art, because of course Romania and France share a love of art and artists. Probably the most famous sculpture from Romania is Brancuș. Well, he has his own atelier in the square in front of the Centre Pompidou, which displays some of his sculptures, some of his maquette, his planned sculptures. He was a friend of many famous French artists, not just artists, but Satie, Eric Satie, the musician. He went originally to Paris and worked under the as I suppose an apprentice of Rodin, the great sculptor, but said, "A tree cannot flourish in the shadow of a great tree." He felt Rodin was too great for him to develop his skills in the shadow of Rodin, so he left. He was also a friend of Apollinaire, Guillaume Apollinaire, the famous poet, and was an associate of Picasso. Picasso was in Paris at the same time. So there's a great link between Romania and Paris in artistic terms. That continues, or that was preceded by two of Romania's most famous artists, Grigorescu and Aman, who both went to Paris and then moved to the École de Barbizon. Barbizon was a village to the south of Paris, where they encountered Millet, Courbet, and developed their own style of realist painting portraiture, but also landscapes. So there's a really strong artistic link between Romania and France. Both countries, it seems to me, have an agrarian economy. I mean, Romania was known for years as the breadbasket of Europe, especially where I live in Oltenia. This is where the wheat came from to provide the food that paid the IMF debt under Ceausescu. Under the Ceausescu regime, it was the only country to ever pay off its debt to the IMF, and that was because he sold food to the rest of Europe. So this IMF payment came from the agrarian economy. He wanted to transform that agrarian economy into an industrial economy. France is still very much an agrarian economy. This is why the French defend the subsidies from the EU for their farmers, because it's very important for them. My final point is about death and about wills and about the Napoleonic Code, and which became the Code Civil. The Napoleonic Code applied in Romania between 1864 and 2011, and meant that when someone dies, the inheritance is spread amongst the family, so the children have an automatic right to a proportion of the estate. This isn't the case in England. In England, a person can leave, in their will, can leave their estate to anyone they like, to a cat and dog's home, to a distant relative, to a girlfriend, to anyone. You can't do that under the Napoleonic Code, because you have to leave a certain percentage, and it's split between your surviving spouse and your children. So it goes one generation. So you leave it to your children and to your spouse. They have a claim on your estate, and this is very interesting, and still is I think in force today. So I hope that's satisfied you. A few comparisons between Romania and France, and the more similarities, as you've seen, than differences. Now my next video will be about regional differences within Romania. As you know, Romania is made up of 3 distinct districts. We call them Wallachia, Transylvania and Moldova, and there are differences between these 3 which were united, and we'll talk about those in the next video. Thank you so much for watching once again. I'm sorry I'm doing so many videos inside, but it's too cold outside at the moment. Okay, have a lovely day, and la rivedere.